Hello, handsome fandom. Remember me? It's Boo. I may have changed a little since you last saw me, but I assure you, my love of video games remains the same. Anyway, I wanted to tell you a little story today. Flashback to me as a little girl. My parents just bought an Apple IIc. That's like one of the first home computers. This was a huge deal. It was like when we bought a VCR. Yes, I'm old. And I had no games. Like, there were no games. Like, there was Lemonade Stand. You know, where you could learn to budget your lemonade stand and deal with inclement weather. And there was a typing teacher. There was this wizard, and there were these meteors flying at the planet he was standing on, and he would blast them with magic whenever you typed the right letter. But you could customize it, and I learned to customize it, and I was so desperate for a game that I named the planets after Decepticons in the Transformers universe. And so it was almost like I had a licensed game. And those were the dark ages we lived in back then. So suck on that, millennials. I walked 20 miles through the snow to get to school. I had one other game, but it wasn't even a game. It was a tutorial for how to use the computer. But it had a couple interactive sequences, and one of them was a rabbit, and it had to go through this like side-scrolling 2D maze to get to a carrot. And navigating the rabbit was so much fun because he had these little weird animations. If you let him sit long enough, he got this standing animation where he would tap his foot impatiently like he was waiting for you. And I was so enamored with this, I literally did that tutorial like 100 times. And there were super boring parts of the tutorial that I had to keep going through in order to get to that last bit. It was literally just navigate the rabbit using the skills you've learned through the maze and get him to the carrot. And I would delay that for as long as possible. I remember showing my friends, and they probably, even at that young age, thought like, you are insane. Anyway, if you look at the games I've loved over the years, you will see a similar pattern. Like, good characters, animated well, lots of personality. If I go back to some of my favorites, like Earthworm Jim, where like you can tell that's a successful character animation because it is a ludicrous concept. It is a earthworm that is in a spacesuit, and the spacesuit operates independent of the earthworm and uses the earthworm part of him as a whip and as a, you know, like a helicopter. It's just a lot of silliness. But the animation is so good. Like, there's this whole section with Peter Puppy where you have to whip him. If you let him get hurt, he turns into like a Jekyll and Hyde sort of transformation into a purple monster dog that like wreaks havoc. Like, there was a game on PSVR called Moss, which had like this little cute mouse that you could interact with. And oh my god, like a mouse using sign language to communicate with the player is genius. Like, it makes her more alive than a voice would, in my opinion. And those little bits of communication that she does with you and that you do with her, they feel authentic. And that's sort of what I'm trying to say here, is that it's not only it's about feeling authentic, but the characters have to have personality as well, and they have to match the game that they're in. And my Nintendo Switch lately has been lit up with great animated games, some of which are imported from the Xbox, like Ori and the Blind Forest and Cuphead. But the game I want to talk about today is Untitled Goose Game. The story of Untitled Goose Game couldn't be simpler. You play as a goose. You run around and you cause problems for the villagers of this small, like, idyllic British countryside village. You do this by sort of interacting with the environment and messing with their lives. I know you've heard this before, but it really is almost like Hitman in a way, but a goose. What makes it work for me is that the goose itself almost feels like a naughty toddler at times, like it's getting into trouble, but there's sort of a fumbling innocence to it. As someone who raised a child who was going through the terrible twos, I can tell you that the goose has a very similar sort of like 0 to 60 like acceleration factor. Like the goose will be sort of like waddling around and all cute and stuff, and then suddenly it'll run, and the people seem totally unprepared for the kind of speed this goose can manage. And I think what makes that work is the animation itself. The goose is just, it's adorable, first of all. It has that wonderful sound that it makes when it walks. It has this little waddle to its steps. Talk about a badonka honk. The goose sneaks around and it cranes its neck a little bit to like look around corners is also just perfect. And like it makes you feel sneaky, it makes you feel naughty. But what I really want to zero in on here is the idea that it could have felt like we were hurting people, but it doesn't. And why is that? I'm not a game designer, I'm not a game developer, I'm not an animator, but as a player, I feel like I kind of understood what they were going for. You want the goose to feel chaotic good. If the goose had been more stiff or more strictly like a goose and not sort of this animated creature, I feel like it might have gone to chaotic evil or a different alignment entirely. In every situation, it sort of seems like the goose is the smartest one in the room. My coworkers are gonna hate that I said this, but it is about power dynamics, because guess what? The goose has all the power in this relationship. The people, well, they want order. They want an orderly world that they can understand, where things are where they put them. The goose doesn't care about any of that. It could leave things anywhere it wants to. How does that translate to animation? Well, for all the playfulness of the goose, which just is a joy to control and manipulate, the people responding to you are very stiff. They often just stand around and look for stuff, or they've got little habits and hobbies, but they have no real purpose, not like the goose. The goose has a purpose. And this game achieves that somehow just through animation and a little bit of sound design. It's perfect. Anyway, I'm Boo from handsomephantom.com, and I hope you liked the video. I'm probably going to do a bunch more. If you liked the video, please like, comment, subscribe to Handsome Phantom, and visit our website where you can see tons of reviews, great indie games like Untitled Goose Game, and you can also find links to their podcast, the HP Podcast, which is just a great hangout. So, come on by. See you next time.